One of the easiest ways to waste money in Europe is by using the wrong credit card or by using the right credit card in the wrong way. And the frustrating part is most of these mistakes are completely avoidable. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 8 essential tips for using credit cards in Europe so you avoid hidden fees and handle payments smoothly. Hi, I'm Angela, and 7 years ago, I moved from the US to Europe. Ever since, I've been writing about my travels on my blog, Notes from Europe. If this is your first time joining me, be sure to subscribe to my channel for more Europe travel videos just like this. And if you stay until the end, I'll tell you how you can sign up for my free email course, How to Plan a Trip to Europe. All right, let's get into it. Tip number 1, debit versus credit and which to use abroad. When you're traveling in Europe, it's really important to know the difference between using a debit card and a credit card. For most purchases, you want to use a credit card rather than your bank's debit card. That's because credit cards offer much stronger fraud protection than debit cards. And if anything goes wrong, it's much easier to dispute a charge. With a debit card, the money comes directly out of your bank account, which makes issues harder to resolve. Beyond that, if you attempt to use a debit card for hotels or rental cars, you will see a very large hold placed on your account, which can tie up your liquid funds. Now, debit cards do have a place in Europe though, but they're reserved for one thing, and that's getting money out of the ATM. I have an entire video on basic money travel tips, so if you're curious about how that process works, be sure to watch that. A lot of people think that they need some sort of premium travel credit card when they're traveling abroad. But the truth is, that's not really the case. The one feature that truly matters is that you have some sort of credit card that does not charge foreign transaction fees. Most standard credit cards are going to charge 3% on every transaction made abroad, and this can add up really quick. Instead, you want a simple credit card that does not charge foreign transaction fees. And yes, it is possible to find these without having to pay an annual fee. This is one of those things that I avoided for a very long time, so don't make the same mistakes that I did. Are you a Visa, a Mastercard, or an Amex person? Another important thing to know is that not all credit cards are accepted equally across Europe. Visa and Mastercard are the most widely accepted. I would say pretty much everywhere is going to take those two cards. American Express, on the other hand, is not quite as widely accepted. And that becomes even more true if you're trying to use it at a small mom and pop shop. But I do know that Amex users are a fiercely loyal bunch. I'm not saying to leave your Amex at home. I would never. But it is a good idea to always travel with a backup card if Amex is your primary credit card. Also, be aware of how payments are actually transacted in Europe. I think some people expect Europe to kind of be this backwater when it comes to payments, but the truth is, we have taken to digital payments. Yes, you can pay with your phone-enabled wallet, those credit cards that are loaded in your phone's wallet. It does surprise people that contactless payments are so popular throughout Europe. But the truth is, you can use Apple Pay or Google Pay at many places. So whether you're using contactless payments with the chip on your physical card or via your phone or even a smartwatch, you will absolutely be able to pay that way with your credit cards in Europe. In some very rare occasions, you may be asked to actually physically insert your credit card into a chip machine and enter your PIN, however. So be sure to always pack the physical card, even if you are in the habit of paying for everything with your digital wallet. Next up, remember, you always want to pay in the local currency. When you're paying with a credit card abroad, you'll often be asked if you want to pay for the transaction with your home currency or with the destination's local currency. It might seem easier to choose your home currency, but this is just another way that payment processors hit you with extra fees through a worse currency exchange rate. So be sure to always choose the local currency, whether that is euros, pounds, whatever. Your credit card company will handle the conversion at a much better rate, which means you'll pay less overall. Next, it's important to know where credit cards will be accepted and where you might need to have some local cash. For the most part, credit cards are used across Europe, especially at restaurants, hotels, transportation hubs like train stations, and a lot of retail locations. But cash is kind of persistent, so even though there are places that have kind of gone totally digital payment, there are still some situations where you'll want to have a bit of cash though. This can include things like small mom and pop shops or local markets or in more rural areas. For example, here in Germany, a lot of local festivals and, for example, Christmas markets only accept cash. So be aware of this and prepare accordingly. To notify your credit card company or not to notify your credit card company. I remember preparing for a trip to China 10 years ago, being on the phone with Bank of America, screaming "representative" into the phone because I had to call my bank and let them know that I was going to be traveling internationally. Thankfully, that's not really required anymore. Today, most major credit card companies have very advanced fraud detection processes, so they don't really need you to give them a call and notify them that you're going to be traveling internationally. That said, it's still a good idea to check with your credit card issuer, especially if your credit card has been issued by a smaller bank, it's your first time traveling internationally, or you plan to visit multiple countries in a short period of time. The best part, you can even set up travel notifications online with most banks these days, so you don't have to wait on the phone. All right, now to recap. The most common mistakes that people make with credit cards. So let's highlight those. The first one is using a debit card everywhere. It's probably not going to get you in trouble, but in the event that you do have some sort of fraud issue, you pretty much have no recourse. The second mistake that a lot of people make is accepting the currency conversion at the end of a transaction, or saying, sure, I want to pay in my home currency instead of the local currency. This is one that trips up even experienced travelers. And the last big credit card mistake is relying on a card like Amex, which isn't really accepted everywhere. Lucky for you, if you can avoid those pitfalls, then using your credit card in Europe will be pretty straightforward and painless. Now, I'm very fortunate these days because I live in Europe and I'm using like my local card whenever I travel, but I'm curious if you have ever had any issues when you travel with a credit card. Have you had one of these like horror stories where you're flagged and locked out of your card? That's truly like my nightmare. If you have any money tips, I want to hear them. So be sure to drop them in the comments below. If you're about to take a trip abroad, be sure to sign up for my email course, How to Plan a Trip to Europe. It walks you through the trip planning process step by step through 8 easy to digest emails that cover each area of the trip planning process. You can sign up via the link in the description below. If this video was helpful, go ahead and give it a like. And subscribe. It really helps the channel. And if you want to hang out a little bit longer, I would recommend these videos next. Until next time,